Today's walk in wisdom brings us to a level where certain things that prior to this time we've been placing our trust in, certain modes of behavior or approaches to situations, and eventually you have to leave things behind so that you can walk ahead with a lighter load. Consider this. When you first come to accept Christ, you come into a wonderful world where Jesus gives you so much freedom and liberty and joy and peace and salvation and healing, and it's an infinite gift that we receive when we give our lives to Jesus and receive his life into our life. However, there is also a great amount of resistance that needs to take place. We have to resist so much of previous things that we were a part of. And so, in a way, we've joined a resistance movement. We have come into something where it's us against the world, so to speak. And yet, we have to come to a place where we're no longer finding ourselves resisting, exerting our energy resisting, but in fact are living in a level of victory or a level of a lifestyle that is so much above all of that, that those things that at one time we would have to resist just simply fall off us, just simply pass us by, are no longer the struggle that they were at one particular time. This is what we're coming into. That's an introduction to Psalm 131, the ladder of perfection, step number 12, verses 1 and 2. My heart is not proud, O Lord. My eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me. But I have stilled and quieted my soul. Like a weaned child is my soul within me. What beautiful words. The world is driven by ambition. Not so the Christian. The Christian is not driven at all, not by anything. Paul said, make it your ambition to lead a quiet life. Fancy saying that to some of the executives and church leaders around nowadays. Make it your ambition to lead a quiet life. That's a challenging ambition for those of us who are called to grow a church or to make a difference in the world. In the midst of an overtaxed, overstressed world, God wants to lead us into a state of sublime tranquility. Not that there's anything wrong with having initiative or purpose. These things help advance your life thus far. But now that you're here, now that we're at level 12, your drive will be of no further use to you. So discard it, like an astronaut discards the first stage of a rocket once its fuel is burned. If he did not, the weight of those fast burners would hinder the spaceship's progress as it continues on its upward trajectory. So as you rise, many things that once served you well will eventually become a hindrance to your journey. You're going where you've never been before. You've got to have new resources. And you must remove anything that disturbs the soul's virtuous connectivity to God. Our soul must become like a weaned child. Every mother knows that her child, once so dependent upon her milk, must one day be weaned. Every child must be raised to one day be strong enough and equipped enough to leave home and stand on their own. Some children never grow up. Some mothers never want their children to grow up. Their lives are forever entwined in a kind of tragic fairy tale with no happily ever after. Likewise, the church has often been guilty of maintaining a certain permanent childhood of the believer, because it's easier to control people if you keep them all in their ABCs rather than encouraging them to rise on the ladder of perfection and learn their LMNOPs and their XYZs. So level 12 is weaning time. It's time to address those things that have been helpful but now can hinder. First among these is dealing with anything that feeds our spiritual pride. My heart is not proud, the psalmist wrote. You've got to kind of be very knowledgeable of yourself, of your inner integrity, to say to God, my heart is not proud. But that's what he said, teaching us that we need to remove all of those things that feed, that water our pride. So the feeders of pride are things like ambition, competitiveness, pretentiousness, focusing on the outward, entitlement, legalism, glamour, performance. Such things affect our eyes. They give us haughty eyes. The psalmist said, my heart isn't proud. I don't have haughty eyes. Haughty eyes look upon others either with envy or with condescension. Remember, Paul talks about the people comparing themselves with themselves. And we compare ourselves with those that are our peers or those that are amongst us. And when we do this in a way that feeds our pride, what we're doing is we're kind of saying, I can't look at you without comparing myself with you. I'm constantly wondering if you've got something that I want, or am I satisfied with the hand that I've been dealt, that it's better than yours. Always in this competitive comparison. So it's a constant state of contest and unrest. So if you're aware of these attitudes in your nature, then you need to wean yourself off of whatever is feeding them. Address it, because you want to go even higher than the level where you're at, and you are not going to be able to progress until you get this right. So the next thing, by the way, it's not saying that you haven't gotten somewhere already. You have really gotten somewhere if you've come to the place where you can start addressing these things in your heart. So the next thing he says is, I do not concern myself with great matters. Boy, stop trying to solve all the problems of the world and accept your place in life. That's what he's saying. Today, we've got teenagers screaming at the world about climate change and animal rights and women's rights and black rights, and in church the immature squabble and scream over doctrine and liturgy and position and power. Stop contending with people over matters that are beyond you, over matters that really are in God's hands. Be meek, be mild-mannered, be courteous, be grateful. Do what is before you, what is within your domain, and advance the space around you. Advance the immediate area around you, such as your office, or your house, or your street, or your neighborhood. People screaming at politicians when, if they were to just do something to clean up their street, they would be saying a whole lot more than trying to get politics to change, because politics won't change. So if you can affect change in your personal life, then the light that is within you, that is shining from you, will invariably grow. And then it says, I do not concern myself with things too wonderful for me, or things that are too high for me. So this is a lesson in humility. Bring an end to those things you are trying to achieve that are outside of your calling. You should do everything that is within your calling. But those things that are outside of your calling, leave that for those that are called to attend to those areas. So let desire be mixed with an equal quantity of humility, otherwise you'll find yourself in deep water. So the need does not constitute the call. Just because you see a psychopathic, alcoholic, homeless individual walking down the street and feel like you want to help him, doesn't mean you have the skills to do so. You might, in trying to help him, you might make his life worse, and you might get hurt in the process. So you need to approach all things in life with humility. And finally it says, I have stilled and quieted my soul. So this is the heart that has become one with the still small voice of God. God would teach you recollection, where in simplicity and in sincerity of heart you give attention to the life immediately around you, and out of that God will move, and in you you will hear his voice focusing and speaking to you and attending to one particular thing. The one particular thing that he would have you focus upon. How is it that Jesus could walk through a crowd of sick people all around the pool of Bethsaida and walk to one man, to heal one man, when there's all of these sick people? It's because we need to arise to the place where God can speak to us and have us attending to one particular thing at a time, in his time. So this is a state of maturity where we are in sync with God's necessary and perfect will, and where you discover the truth that in quietness and confidence shall be your strength. It's a bit of a long one today. I had no anticipation it would be this long. However, with all that I've talked about and all of the wisdom that God is giving to us in his word, I pray that you will find a level of peace and tranquility that you've never known before by letting go of those things that have been so much a bat in your belfry, and focus and attend yourself to the still small voice of God, that he would be uttering within you right at this very minute, right as I'm speaking. The still small voice of God is saying, this is the way, walk ye in it. God bless you. We'll see you again tomorrow for more wisdom from the word.